Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from Capital One Bank and Chase Commercial Term Lending, the Witkoff Group, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Greenberg Traurig, Perfect Building Maintenance, Genova Burns. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Colliers International NYC, CPEX Real Estate Services, Cushman & Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Fisher Brothers, First Nationwide Title Agency, Flushing Bank, Foley & Lardner, Friedman, Handler Real Estate Organization, HAP Investment Developers, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Chairman, USRealty.com, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Madison Realty Capital, Massey-Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, N.A., Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, Newbanks, MHP Real Estate Services, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Sterling National Bank, Sterling Risk, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Continuum Company, the CUNY TV Foundation, the Moynihan Group, and these friends.
Where could you go and take a ride in New York City on a boat for free? Staten Island Ferry. Where could you go and have a brand new outlet center? Staten Island. Where can you go and see the biggest wheel in the world? Staten Island. Where can you go and get new affordable apartments or market rate apartments at $1,600 for a studio? Staten Island. So today, I've assembled a group of individuals to talk about what's happening in Staten Island. My guests today include David Barry, who is the president of Ironstate Development, Winthrop Wharton, who is the executive director of development for BFC Development, Staten Island resident and dear friend Vincent Pitta, who is the managing partner of Pitta Giblin, Josh Muss, who's been involved with Staten Island since the turn of the dinosaur, CEO of Muss Development. And last but not least, Rich Marin, who's the CEO of the New York Wheel. So you've done so much work in New Jersey over the years. What brought you to Staten Island?
Well, I think the waterfront access bears a lot of similarity to what we've experienced in Hudson County. I like the outer boroughs. I like their authenticity and their culture. I think that Staten Island has a very scenic and easy commute. It's affordable compared to Manhattan and even Brooklyn rents, and so I think it's got a lot of hallmarks that make for a really great potential development area on that North Shore.
You've been in Staten Island since what, 1981, Vinny?
1984.
1984. So what happened when you left the chic Brooklyn, okay, of where Borum Hill of Brooklyn, and
Carroll Gardens.
Carroll Gardens. How did you decide to go to Staten Island? And you've owned a couple of homes over there, and you even have a lobbying firm in Staten Island.
Well, I got married in 1984, and I was living in Brooklyn up until that time. We were looking for a little piece of backyard, thinking that at some point in time we're going to have some children, and we did a couple of years later. So I started looking around. There's a little humor to this. And we looked in Long Island, we looked in Connecticut, we looked in New Jersey, and every time we'd come back, my wife's mother, rest her soul, wouldn't talk to me for 3 weeks. I was going to take her daughter away from Brooklyn. So eventually we looked in Staten Island, because my dad had just moved there, and we found a great little house in Grasmere, and we bought the house, and we've been in Staten Island in that community since 1984.
Okay, you have a double benefit. Your office is in Lower Manhattan, so the commute for you from Staten Island to Lower Manhattan is like 23 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, except for when there's bad rush hour. You have a lobbying firm besides a law firm with an office in Staten Island. Why do you feel so bullish today as opposed to maybe a couple of years ago on Staten Island? Because I think a lot of thing has been done because of your partner, your colleague Jim, when he was borough president, and Josh, who I'm going to ask in a second, how difficult it's been to get development approved in Staten Island.
Well, it's up until Rich Marin and Don Capocia took the dip, to develop their properties. Staten Island was basically a bedroom community. It had some retail, shopping malls, some nice restaurants, but most people lived there, didn't work there. Many people commuting by the ferry to Lower Manhattan, the Wall Street services industry. And when Jim Molinaro his term was up, we started talking. He obviously was very important to both projects and to David Barry's project as well, to really get them off the ground and get government working, for business, as opposed to the other way around. And we decided that it was an opportune time to open an office, and we did. And a year later, Sal Castano, the former fire commissioner, joined us. And, we're very, very bullish on Staten Island right now.
So, Joshua, 52 years ago, you opened up a shopping center on Staten Island with a wall bounce, okay? You've seen and you've sent me some articles about trying to get things approved and zoned and for development in Staten Island has been a nightmare over the many, many years. And you own some land over there for development. Let's talk about Staten Island today and, talk about how difficult it was in the past to do something.
I think the major issue in Staten Island was not necessarily although there was always that concern about the people who wanted to be the last ones over the bridge. But the problem with Staten Island is that it didn't have the infrastructure that the rest of the city had. So we'd come into a site, we'd have to figure out sewers, utilities, roads, and the zoning obviously was also an issue. But when you compound everything, from the time you start to the time you're ready, you can get into a different cycle. So all of a sudden, in 1972, you saw a piece of property. In 75, you had it finally rezoned. In 77, you figured out with the DC how to get your approvals. And in 79, there's a depression, and you have to wait all over again. And by the way, in that infinite period of time, they may have rezoned the property. That happened to us several times, where we literally had to go in and get properties rezoned. So you start the process. Actually, we have one site that we've been working on for almost 50 years, and it's not there yet.
So, Rich, how you and your colleagues, and then we'll get to Win, come up with the idea of a destination of a 650-foot wheel called the New York Wheel?
Well, 630 feet.
Okay, I'm sorry. What's 20 feet, amongst friends?
Well, as to why we chose Staten Island, it was very simple. I have a running sort of joke on that. I say that the 800-pound gorilla sits where it wants to, but the 630-foot observation wheel sits where the city wants it to sit. And this was where the city wanted it to sit, and the city, through EDC, had plans to develop this waterfront property, these two surface parking lots, and they basically did an RFEI in 2011, and I don't know how many responded, but I have a suspicion that Win and I were the two that responded.
You could be right.
And, after we sorted out who was going to go on which of the two lots, which was a funny story from the old days, we settled on the thought that this would create a wonderful destination with that beautiful ball field in the middle that has always been somewhat underappreciated, not for its beauty, but maybe for its attendance. And with Lighthouse Point and with Dave's project, the Core Four, as Borough President Otto calls them, we've really got a destination, and that's now our marketing war cry, Destination St. George, because it's a wonderful area and it's going to have all these wonderful facilities.
So since you were the other martyr who wanted to go on the other side on this RFP, talk to us about New York City's, and it may not be New York City's because I heard the Bronx believes that they have an outlet center also. Staten Island's own outlet center.
Well, as Rich said, we met, we got married by the city in 2011.
What shotgun marriages?
Yeah, it was, and it actually worked out beautifully. We really saw an opportunity to create a gateway to Staten Island. Multifaceted waterfront development with shopping, entertainment, lodging, dining, kind of everything. Traditionally, outlet centers are located next to major interstates, right? They draw a trade area of 50 to 70 miles, very traditional retail. The reason for that is, it's very difficult to find a site large enough to house an outlet center in the city. It's very difficult to find one that has transportation going to it, and one that's located just far enough away from Main Street retail not to erode or compete with the Main Street retailers. So when we saw this site, we saw a real opportunity to do what will be the first outlet center in New York City, and really what will be probably, we hope, the best. And
now, how many square foot is this?
It's 350,000 square feet of retail. It's about 500,000 square feet
One
of
level
parking.
or two?
It'll be multi-level. It'll be basically primarily on 3 levels. The main level with about 180,000 square feet of GLA, and then the rest tiered up and down, dining on top, some additional retail down below. We obviously just had our groundbreaking about a week and a half ago, and we've pre-leased about 105,000 square feet to tenants like Nordstrom, H&M, Gap, Banana, Bass, Wilson's, White House Black Market, Guess, Starbucks, a whole host of tenants, what we consider kind of our anchor tenants. We've got another 60,000 square feet in LOI or leases out, which will put us right at about 50% leased within the next 3 months.
So here's the question, and I'm not asking specific tenants. What is the rent traditionally for a space that somebody might be looking at today if they were going on the market?
Well, outlet centers are a little different. So outlet centers, obviously, as I said, are primarily located outside of cities, right? So the average REIT rent for outlet centers is somewhere in the $37 square foot range. Obviously, with land prices and building costs in New York City, it's cost prohibitive to do an outlet unless you can do better. The top 10 outlet centers do between $1,000 and $1,600 per square foot in revenue a year, and their revenue to rent ratio is typically between, let's say, 8 and 10%. So we certainly think we'll be in that league of the top 10 best based on, the population, the amount of people that come over on the ferry already, and the draw.
So here's the big question. Over the last 10 years, pre-recession, there were a couple of developments who were built on Staten Island. A number of them went bankrupt during the last recession, partially because they were not thought out properly. They were, they were over-leveraged. There were other problems over there, which your company would probably the old company probably financed in the day. But so today, people are looking, and I said this prior in the green room, you can't find affordable rents. New York City is becoming really unaffordable to people and the young millennials or anyone to stay over here. So in Staten Island, you're doing, as we would call, an 80-20. So 20% of those units are going to be going to people, 50% have to be from Staten Island. Others, and then there's a 5% for policemen or public service, and so on. The difference in rent is so significantly from Manhattan or even Brooklyn. How are you able to do that?
Well,
development is development. Land cost has to be.
So, obviously land cost in Staten Island is not as expensive as Manhattan or Brooklyn or some of the other places. Construction cost, the type of construction we have is, low rise, essentially, the equivalent of like stick frame.
Okay, is this in a way similar to, the village?
It is. It's slightly different construction type, but the point being that really we're able to manage the costs better. I think that way it's not a poured in place reinforced concrete high-rise building, which takes your costs up and your carry costs. So I think part of it's that. I think part of it's that the outer boroughs have just kind of come into their own at this point in time, particularly along the waterfront. So if you look at, You know, anything from Brooklyn and Queens to people talking about Mott Haven to Staten Island to Jersey City. When you surround Manhattan and look at that water and that access and that proximity, there's opportunities. And Staten Island's no different than Brooklyn and Queens or Jersey City for that matter, in that you're able to deliver a value proposition, plug into the existing neighborhood fabric. And not everybody can afford to be in Manhattan at this point in time. That's a fact. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I think that's a big piece of what's driving the outer boroughs, and Staten Island's a part of that story.
Now, do you see yourself with the property that you've owned for many years? At one time you were going to build office space over there, right?
Yes.
Do you see the property being utilized for office, or do you see it more as a residential situation today?
The interesting thing that you mentioned is 80-20. We have been advocating for a long period of time that 421A should be as of right on Staten Island, because the difference in cost, the difference in income is so tremendous. We don't have the luxury of building low-rise. We have some extraordinary land issues from a standpoint of rock. That's not to say that it's not buildable and it's not desirable and we'd love to build it, but there are challenges, and the challenges probably mostly are financing. You're not finding banks running to finance mid-rise, high-rise projects unless they're in a very well-proven location.
Now, but in the same manner, you're building a shopping center, you're building a development. Some lender has to be there. I know you even have EB-5 money, okay?
So do we.
You know, so you have EB-5, but that's mezz money. You need primary money over there. Who's providing? Do we have a traditional bank? I mean, who did your construction? It's public information.
Yeah, I mean, we did state bonds on the primary, but Josh is right that it is hard to leverage up. I mean, relative to other markets, so it does require a fair amount of equity to get it started. You know, you have to believe in the market. It's not quite as easy to finance as, say, Jersey City, which is a more established market, but I think that's going to change. Certainly on the residential side, I hope that changes as we open up and set more of a benchmark for rents over there.
One time, a lot of people, when Vinny, even before Vinny moved over there, when Josh's family first went out there, you know, Staten Island was a lot of single-family, two-family homes over there, a lot of people migrating from Brooklyn over there. Are we seeing new single houses being built in Staten Island, and developments, any tract homes being built?
There are developments, single family and townhouse developments. The houses are getting bigger and they're taking up more of the property that they sit on. But as a parent, the good thing about Staten Island is, if my children want to stay on Staten Island, it's affordable for them. Unlike people who, even my parents and their siblings, primarily moved to New Jersey or Long Island. And the cost structure was such that their kids couldn't afford to buy where they grew up as children. So if my children want to stay on Staten Island, it's affordable.
So now I'm going to ask you the big question.
Yep.
You have 3 children.
Yes.
Okay, they're all millenniums. Okay, as we would say in the trade. Where do they live?
My oldest boy, Vito, who's a lawyer, lives in Carroll Gardens, in the house that his mother grew up in, and my other 2 children still live at home in Staten Island.
So now you are building, as we said, the New York Wheel, 630 feet, right?
630.
Okay. And you and Mr. Wharton over there in BFC are trying to do, as you were saying, a major, marketing, public affairs, community things. How is this being promoted? I know, there's plenty of press releases. There's the Staten Island Advance, the newspaper. There are other things, and I'm doing a good promotion today. But besides that, how are people from around the world learning about what's happening in Staten Island? It was a nice article about you and Fast Company, and so on.
Well, first of all, I can't avoid mentioning that my son, who just got married this past weekend, and my daughter-in-law live in St. George, and they moved there about a year ago. So I'm a recent convert to moving to Staten Island, and my children are living in Staten Island. So there you go. And they used to live in Williamsburg. So that's that's the sort of the move.
So they moved and they saved money.
Well, they went from one very hip place to the next new place that's probably going to be the next hip place, which is St. George. At least that's what a lot of people think. But to answer your question, the The promotion has really been a collective effort by a lot of us together, along with NYC and Company, the New York City Tourism Agency. George Fertitta and more recently Fred Dixon have really put these projects as a priority. And I'll just use as an example the recent International Tourism Show in Berlin, where we were asked to join him and in that presentation, because the three attractions that the City of New York now promotes globally are the 9/11 Museum and One World Trade Center, the new downtown Whitney, and the combined New York Wheel Empire Outlets. This is now considered to be one of the big tourist attractions for New York City, so we get the benefit of the promotion of the City of New York. We're obviously doing a lot of promotion ourselves. We get very good coverage, both from the Staten Island Advance and New York One and a few other carriers in the media. And we think there's a lot of buzz over the next 2 years that's going to build.
And you're keeping the price similar to what the other venues are. Like when the Observation opens, it's $35. The Empire State Building's $35. I don't know what top of the Rock is, but it's probably in the same.
They're all comparable.
They're all comparable over there on the situation. Vinny, you also, besides both Pitta Giblin plus Pitta Bishop, you represent the hospitality industry for years.
Yes.
For years, hotels, were not the easiest thing for Staten Island. What's happening today? How does the Hotel Association, the unions, look at Staten Island today in the hospitality world? Especially with the new venues opening up and so on.
Well, I think the market has changed dramatically, Michael. Up until a short while ago, basically only 2 hotels on Staten Island. You've got 2 new ones on the drawing board. One will be part of the project.
Is it your project, the
between
hotel, or is that
Ours, yeah.
So you're building one hotel in Lighthouse Point, Mr.
They're building
Tracker's building also a hotel.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Again, in the same general area, and because you have more people coming to Staten Island. People who've moved away come back to visit with their children or their grandchildren. The snowbirds who fly back and forth.
What's happening today is a lot of people do not want. I know my friend Mr. Muss and I are not moving down to Florida, but baby boomers were moving down to Florida or other parts. But today they're moving back, and they'd rather be closer to their families.
Yep.
Unfortunately, to have an apartment in Manhattan or something close by, it's prohibitive.
Yep.
Then you could talk about, you can go to one of these active adult communities, which I call one step from the grave spots, the 55 and older in parts of New Jersey or parts of Long Island. Here you now have that opportunity to be so close to the city, and you can visit your kids, and you can get the benefits of going to Broadway and so on.
Let me make a point. So we have that site right near the ferry. We could build approximately 300-400 apartments. For many years, St. George looked great. You have a great view of Manhattan. It's a great commute, but nothing was going on there. With somebody lived there, they'd walk out at night and be either bored to death or maybe some criminal element. With all this happening, I see St. George as becoming a wonderful alternative to Manhattan. Mm-hmm. It has the proximity, it has the view. I often said the problem with the boroughs is that if you can't live in Manhattan, at the very least they want to be able to see you from Manhattan. Well, here you can see from Manhattan. And I truly do believe that St. George is dawning upon a new age.
Well, it's a good point, too. I mean, to Vince's point, there truly is a dearth of hotel rooms in Staten Island. There's primarily 2 major hotels, which are kind of mid-island, away from the ferry, difficult as far as public transportation goes. They service really the corporate park right there. They've got a great event space, which they do a lot of big events, and people travel there.
Is that the old Holiday Inn, Vinny?
It's the Hampton Inn and in the Marriott, and they do relatively low RevPAR and ADRs, steady occupancy. But what I think our site does, beautiful views of Manhattan, easily accessible. It's an alternative to downtown Manhattan. And it's the value proposition that you talk about.
Yeah. I mean, we've done hotels. I mean, Jersey City and Hoboken, for instance,
You had a great hotel.
Yeah, they had almost no hotels 10 years ago, and now there's probably 5, and they're all doing well. And I think it's another similar equation. It's a sub-market that really needs some new hotel product.
Right, and I think what's happening, the number building 2 hotels or 3 hotels in Staten Island can be absorbed, as opposed to, Vinny and I were talking about this last week, the 25 or 30 hotels being built in Long Island City and so on.
Right.
Okay, because those are totally different type of things, type of hotels.
Yeah.
Okay, and I believe that it's true, and I think what's happening with all of this development, with people going there, with the positive momentum, they're fixing up the movie theater also.
The St. George Theater, yes.
It was,
Yes.
It was fixed up, and they
Okay.
continue to spend money on it.
Destination St. George, it's the place to be.
So what about the rest of Staten Island? St. George is fine. What about the balance of Staten Island?
Well, there's a big project going on. I don't know if you remember, there was talk of bringing NASCAR to Staten Island.
Right, and
Well,
that died.
Yes, it died for a variety of reasons. But that site is now being developed by Staten Island Marin. It's going to be an industrial park. Okay? And that is going to spur development all around it. The big problem, the big concern always is traffic, congestion. If we have really one chink in our armor is lack of transportation other than by car. And by car, there's narrow roads and very few...
But here is something, and David, who's literally been on the forefront of Jersey City, one of the greatest things that they did in Jersey City was the light rail. The light rail helped Jersey City, because not everything is next to the train. The possibility of a light rail in Staten Island would be great for the entire community, because it would enhance everything. People want to get closer to the ferry because the ferry is free. It's affordable, Do you see?
If I could say on that, though, there is the Sertoa line that runs for, 16 or 18 stops. So it's the equivalent of a better version of the light rail. I think expanded ferry service actually is what would help Staten Island even more. I'm not talking about the public Staten Island ferry that exists now, but more fast ferries that pick up from different parts of the island, because the road system is compromised. And
Right, but
David's absolutely right.
The borough
But
president.
you're right as well. With the light rail, the Staten Island Economic Development Corporation has been lobbying. To his great credit, Senator Schumer, I think, has a special place in his heart for Staten Island, and we're hopeful that he'll help get us a light rail, because that'll change the dynamic.
But I think
tremendously.
the combination of a light rail, the combination of what David just brought out, the fast high-speed ferry throughout the boroughs, because the high-speed ferry is helping Williamsburg, it's helping other markets in the city, and I think I wish I had another half an hour to do a show, and in a couple of months we'll come back and continue with what's happening in Staten Island. But I think Staten Island is, as they would say, the apples are strong, and everything is looking positive for Staten Island. I'd like to thank David Barry. I'd like to thank Vinny, Joshua, and Richard. See you next week. See you on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're social media millennials. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.